To everybody, warm welcome to the candidate, and greetings, of course, also to the members of the public who watch us now live. Advisory group of experts gathered together in full composition to conduct an interview for a candidate for the position of the judge of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, Mrs. Yanovska Oleksandra, judge of the Session Criminal Court of the Supreme Court, judge speaker, who has been allowed to participate in this competitive selection process by the Council of Judges of Ukraine. The interview will be moderated by the Secretary of the AGE, Yaroslav Romaniuk, whom I'm now passing the floor.
Дякую, пане голово.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greetings, Oleksandra Hurivna. Greetings to all of those who are watching us live now. All 6 advisory group expert members are present. The chairman, Mr. Aleš Zalar, he participates in this interview in online mode today. Physically present are members of the advisory group of experts, Madam Hannah Kotka, Mr. Maureen O'Connor, Mr. Natalia Kuznetsova, and Ms. Oksana Vasilchenko. And also, AGE deputy members are also in attendance, namely Thomas Griffith, Richard Barrett, Marek Zubik, Vasil Shakun, and Volodymyr Kuzmenko. And also me, as the secretary of AGE, Yaroslav Romaniuk. Oleksandra Grigorievna, as of the beginning of the competition procedures, we had time and the tools to collect necessary information about you as the candidate for the position of the judge of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. I should say we have managed to find lots of positive information, but also there are still moments that we need to clarify. And the aim of this interview is to give you the chance to clarify any doubts, if anyone has them, regarding your high moral qualities that is required for the judge of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. I would like to thank you for the communication that you have supported with the advisory group, provided well-grounded answers. But today we shall continue this work in this mode. Also, in accordance with the methodology, we will not take into consideration information, documents, or other materials during the interview that you decided not to provide earlier but want to provide today. Also, we shall not consider documents or information that we have requested in advance, but you, on some reasons, chose not to submit it. We can make an exception if it determines that such exception is justified. I also would like to inform you that the interview is being recorded and streamed live on the AGE resources, as well as the website of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. Therefore, I call upon the AGE members and the candidate to limit the use of sensitive data and limited access to information on live air. And in case of such sensitive information, we are going to do it offline, here in the room. As for the duration of our work, the duration of the interview is approximately 1 hour. And I will kindly ask you to formulate answer to the questions in the laconic way, to the point. Among members of the group, advisory group, we have English-speaking expert. So if your level of English is insufficient, you have the chance to use the function of the simultaneous interpretation. There's the headset on the table next to you, which means that you will get translation into Ukrainian. Before we finish the interview with you, you will be given the chance to do your concluding remarks, and you will have 5 minutes to do so. And right now we are ready to start the interview, and I would like the rapporteurs, Mr. Zeller and Ms. Kuznetsova, to start asking the questions they have prepared for you.
Mr. Secretary, I will start with the first question to esteemed Madam Yanovska. A very general question at the beginning. According to the knowledge of the advisory group of experts, you have been national expert of the Council of Europe for a rather longer period of time. Could you just briefly explain what kind of tasks you have in that capacity of an expert of the Council of Europe?
Thank you for your question. Так, дійсно, я була...
Yes, indeed. I have been the national expert of the Office of the Council of Europe in Ukraine. I wouldn't say this was a long-lasting period of time. As the national expert, I was for maybe 3 years, even though my communication and my cooperation with the Council of Europe office was long-lasting. In fact, as of the moment of the preparation of the new criminal procedure code began, I don't know, I guess it was back in 2010, 2011, I began actively cooperating with different international organizations. Since I was the specialist in the sphere of the criminal procedure, I made speeches at different events, quite often both as the national expert, a national consultant of the Council of Europe office in Ukraine, and I was often invited to do the expert evaluation of different draft laws, norms and regulations, in order to prepare and to hold the first sessions of trainings for judges, prosecutors, and lawyers according to the new criminal procedure law code. I also participated in the capacity building of the system of free legal aid, because many efforts were taken, and the first pool of lawyers, trainers was prepared for the free legal aid system. So as the national expert, the national consultant of the Council of Europe office, I worked in this direction. Also, I was involved as national expert, as far as I remember, in the project on the protection of rights of journalists. It was also a very powerful project, and I, together with international expert, prepared methodological guidelines on enhancement of the legislation and also organizational events on the journalists' rights protection in Ukraine.
Thank you. Now, we assume, because we checked your electronic declarations, that at least some of this work you performed for the Council of Europe in the capacity on the expert was paid. For example, according to our data, you indicated that you received in the year 2016 186,000 hryvnias, and then in the year 2021 9,722 Ukrainian hryvnias, and in 2022 you received 5,680 Ukrainian hryvnias of income from the Council of Europe office in Ukraine. And as you explained in your written answers, you declared the income received from the Council of Europe in the year 2021, 2022, in your tax return for 2023. So actually, in the 2023 year, you declared this income for the previous 2 years. However, you were unable to provide a copy of your tax return for the reporting year 2016. You explain us why you have failed to provide us with this tax return for the reporting year 2016.
Yes, I presented to the AGE electronic declarations. I should say that since the year 2017, at first as the candidate to the Supreme Court judges, then as judge of the Supreme Court, I submit annual electronic declaration, but besides it, due to the fact that I have several sources of income, starting from the year 2015, if I'm not mistaken, I submitted written tax returns. And up to the year 2017-2018, these tax returns were done in written form. I even have drafts of these tax returns. So I submitted them personally to the tax office in the district Pechersky, where I was registered. Unfortunately, I don't have copies of these written tax returns, and I asked how to obtain them. I can ask for the copy, but I will need 30 days to receive an official response from the tax authorities. When I started to submit electronic declarations and tax returns as candidate for the position of the judge and then as the judge, in the year 2019, I submitted the declaration, annual declaration and tax declaration. And when I calculated my taxes in tax return, I found out that there is excess. I mean, I paid more than I had. And this excess was more than 22,000. I accrued for the year 2019. It was 7,000 and something. I paid them, and then I had this excess sum paid, 29,000. I understood that it was excess. It means that during the next declarations, during the next years, I mean 2022, for annual declaration and for tax return, and I accrued the tax sum as 13,000 and something like this. And then, as Mr. Zaller has said in the declaration for 2023, I stated there my taxes for 2021 and 2022. And now, in my electronic cabinet, there is excess paid in the amount of 5,000 and something. So I'm not in debt. I have paid my taxes, but unfortunately, I were not able to provide you with the written tax returns, including one for the year 2016, because I don't possess them physically. Okay. As for
this 2016 year, this is the most problematic actually, because you received 186,000 Ukrainian hryvnias. This is quite a high sum, approximately 7,000 euro today. So how should you this be confirmed that you declare to the tax authorities that income? You said that it would be needed 30 days to obtain such confirmation. Did you ask for such confirmation or not?
Я зрозуміла, так було поставлено питання.
So the question you stated in the last round of the questions. So I understand that I'm not in time to submit my request for the tax authorities. You see that all the calculation, all the payments from the Council of Europe, they go through the bank transfers. And these are not incomes that can be, I don't know, hidden or not showed. And it is obvious that I show this income because I declared it in the declaration of a candidate for the judge of the Supreme Court and as in the declaration of a judge of the Supreme Court. And these excess taxes paid, they are confirmed by the conclusions that I took from electronic cabinets. So the last surplus was for the beginning of the 2018. So there was this excessive payment. It couldn't arise if I hadn't submitted tax return and if I hadn't accrued by myself taxes, because this excessive sum paid can arise, this issue can arise only when a person accrues by themselves such sum, because all the other taxes are paid by the employer. I think that this excessive sum paid arose from the fact that if we look about my income declaration for 2016, so Ms. Oleksandra, I have to interfere. So the question was whether you tried to obtain the copy as official response from the tax authorities for the declaration of these 186,000 for 2016. You said that no, I didn't do it because I didn't have enough of time. So it was the fourth round question. Okay. Should I add something?
I have a next question. As a general rule, the annual tax return of an individual for the reporting year should be filed until 1st of May of the following year. And pursuant to the provisions of the tax code of Ukraine, if a taxpayer is unable to fulfill his or her tax obligation to file tax returns in time, such taxpayer should be released from the liability provided for by this code, with the mandatory fulfillment of such obligations within 6 months after the termination or lifting martial law in Ukraine. So could you explain the circumstances of your inability to file tax returns for the reporting years 2021 and 2022? Because you actually did it in 2023.
Я зрозуміла.
In the year 2022, I haven't submitted annual electronic declaration for the year 2021. And in the year 2023, I submitted annual declaration for the year 2021 and 2022, as it is foreseen by the law. I have done it even before, not in the November, but for the year 2021, I submitted declaration in summer, and for the year 2022, I submitted a bit later. And after submitting annual declarations, I obtained the opportunity to form the tax return declaration for these years. But to submit tax return declaration for 2021 and 2022, it wasn't possible. So it was acceptable to submit declaration only for 2023, and I have done it. Having obtained all the information from the electronic cabinet of the taxpayer after the 20th of February, I decided that as I had small but still these were incomes, and I decided that I should include them in the general base for taxation. That's why I included them for the tax declaration for 2023. I understand that it is not completely correct, but as for my integrity and my desire to pay taxes for this income, when I finally had the overall picture of my income, I think that I did it in an optimal way in the condition of martial law.
My last question with respect to your work for international organizations and possible income related to that is, did you have any other engagements with any other organization as an expert or in a similar capacity where you also received some income for that assignment?
Я співпрацювала
At the beginning of the year 2004, 2005, and 2006, I collaborated with the USID, but I don't have any documented confirmations. For many years, I have collaborated only with the Council of Europe office. And esteemed members of the AGE could see that I tried to present the contracts and invoices that I have obtained. These are not all of them. That's why I presented also the excerpts from my account to make it possible to trace payments from the Council of Europe office.
To this, you mentioned USAID, so this was the paid task, and so if you get income, did you declare this to the tax authorities?
Чесно кажучи, це
Frankly speaking, it was so long time ago, it was 20 years ago, and even more, so it is really difficult to say. I remember that I participated actively, and there were a lot of events. We discussed the jury court in it, so, and there were different topics. So whether the question is whether you declared, I don't remember. I understand, but I don't remember. I understand the question, but I still don't remember precisely how we interacted. And I don't remember whether it was paid or unpaid. I remember that there were a lot of events, and as scientist, I was interested in it.
Thank you for these explanations. I will now pass the floor to my colleague Natalia Kuznetsova, who will continue with questions to you. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Алеш. Я вас вітаю.
Thank you, Mr. Alish. So I have a couple of questions regarding the sale of your husband's car in 2018. Until May 10th, 2018, your husband owned a vehicle, automobile Mitsubishi Pajero 3.0, manufactured in 2007. Explain the history of the purchasing of this car for your family, and what was the cost of your husband's purchase of the car. The car was acquired in 2007. It was acquired from the shop, and there was a loan. So I gave consent to take a loan for my husband, and in 2010 the loan was cleared, and the ownership right was registered for my husband. I stated in my written explanations that unfortunately I do not have documents that would confirm the cost and elements that were included in this car. It was the year 2007. So I'm a professor and my husband has another position, so I didn't save all these documents. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your answers. So as you stated in your written explanations, in 2014, this car was involved in a traffic accident. Could you please explain the details of this accident and what damage was done to the car? Yes, in 2014, in autumn, if I'm not mistaken, my husband parked the car in the settlement near our house. It's near Kiev, and he went shopping. In that moment, another car just bumped into my husband's car. Mitsubishi Pajero is a big car, big sport jeep. But the backward wheels were distorted after the accident, so the back part and the transmission part was distorted, so we had to repair it for quite a long time. So it could be driven, but there were constant repairs, because after such road accidents, when the steering part is damaged, I understood that there was constant need to repair it. Even not being specialist, I understand it. So the time passed before we had no... Okay, so this was the question about this road accident, traffic accident. Do you have any documents that confirm the fact of this traffic accident, or just your unpleasant memories? And I found out from your explanation that it was quite a significant traffic accident that damaged quite significantly this car. My second question is, was the car repaired after the accident? How did you do it? And was it running? So was it functionable when you sold it? When your husband sold it on May 10th, 2018? Because you said that you wanted to change the car, so there was a road accident in 2014, then there were a lot of reparations, and on May 10th you decided to sell. In 2018 you decided to sell this car. So whether it was functionable, and how your husband, what did he do? So yes, the car was repaired with the course of time, and in the year 2018 we sold it. And my husband also bought the used automobile, another one. Okay, let's not talk about the purchase of the next automobile. Let's talk about this one. So it was running, it was functionable, yes, this car. And in connection with it, according to your electronic declaration for 2019, and according to your written explanations, it was sold for 140,000 hryvnia. So it is up to $5,340 US. But at the same time, according to car classifiers websites, even now, a similar car is sold for an average of $8,000, $9,000 US. And according to archived advertisements, the cost of a similar car in the period corresponding to the period of sale could have been even higher. How can you explain it?
Thank you, Natalia Semenivna. You know, selling the car in the market is how you will, agree. So it's a contractual thing. I provided to the dear experts my search in the advertisements, and I myself was quite surprised that the price can be so different. And the cars that are older ones with, they can sometimes be more costly than the new ones that have a shorter run. And this car was 11 years old. And in the act of the examination, it said 11,000 of the contribution. It was after a serious accident, even though it was in operation, it was functional, but it was difficult to hide the fact that it was after the road traffic accident, and there was no such even idea, basically. So we sold it for what we could, Okay, I understand your explanation that the cost of the car is affected by the mileage, by the condition, or the fact that it was in RTA. But during the stage of the written questions, you could not provide to the advisory group of experts, neither the experts of the cost of purchase of this car in 2007, or the or maybe you couldn't also provide us the information on the configuration of this car that can also affect the price of it. And here I hold the photos where you can't quite understand which car it is. We can't see the car plate here. I mean, these are just pictures of photos that show the level of the disaster, so to say. Well, I took those photos. It's hard to identify this vehicle as the one that we're actually discussing now. So do you think we are now speaking about the perception of the position of the candidate for such a high position, like the judge of the Constitutional Court? Do you think this can cause doubt in the outer observer? The fact that you couldn't provide this information, that maybe it's because due to unwillingness to inform the details on the RTA. So if you were the objective observer, and after having heard this conversation we just had and read the documents, how would you, assess all of it? I understand. Of course, I understand. As a lawyer and as a person, I understand that it would be much better for me as well if I could provide you the stocks to you. But the thing is, when I came to work for the position of the judge, I clearly realized that the level of responsibility, I understood this, but I just realized that the level of responsibility also lies in me treating very carefully the documenting all of my steps, everything I do in this life, me and my relatives. So unfortunately, in 2007, in 2010, and even in 2014, I did not have such duties or level of responsibility yet, and I suppose I love cleaning, so maybe, Okay, thank you for your answer, but I'm happy that your attitude to these things has changed. And to continue our conversation, I have one more question. Do you confirm that you own a car Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross 2019 and that you used it during 2021 and 2022? Yes, okay. In your declaration of integrity that is to be provided by every representative of the judicial, for 2022 you stated that during 2022 I paid fines in connection with violation of clause 12.9b of the traffic rules. This clause refers to the prohibition for a driver to exceed the maximum speed limit. At the same time, according to the information received by the AGE from the Register of Administrative Violations in the field of road safety, you, as the driver of this car, were subject to not only 2 fines for speeding in 2022, but also one for non-payment for parking services on July the 26th, 2022 in Lviv, and one for violation of clause 3.34, no stopping of the traffic rules. The place of offense, Moskovska Street, Kyiv, August the 16th, 2022. Please explain the circumstances of the last 2 traffic offenses. And you said, you were right when you said that the judge differs from the rest of the citizens, as people are watching, the observers are watching him or her. So there's a necessity to prepare the declaration of integrity and to enter all data there, please. As the judge of the Cassation Criminal Court, of course, I understand how negative the violation of the road traffic rules and what it can lead to. Indeed, I had 2 violations. Violations in 2022 for speeding. It happened in summer. I was on my way to the city of my parents who are in Lviv, and it all happened on the highway. I never speed up in the town or on the main road, but unfortunately I somehow, wasn't following attentively. I was using the unknown road to me to Lviv and back, and it was highway. And as for the non-payment for parking services, yes, I was taking my parents to the center of Lviv. It wasn't easy for them to move, so I tried to park as close as I could to the place where we had to go. And frankly speaking, and everybody knows this, in Lviv it's very hard to park your car in the center, in the city center. Knowing that in Lviv we have no payment for parking because it was abolished during the martial law. Frankly speaking, in Lviv, where I saw the sign to pay, I tried to pay, but perhaps somehow 2 times I didn't see it. Okay, going back to the Declaration of Integrity. In this integrity, you stated 1 fine for exceeding the maximum speed limit, but you had 2 facts of it, and also the violation of parking. And it is an administrative offense, and even the fine was paid. So how do you feel about the things that are connected with informing, even about insignificant administrative offenses in the Declaration of Integrity? The thing is that in the Declaration of Integrity, I have mentioned that I have paid fines for violation of clause 12.9b. So here I meant 2 fines. I did not say the quantity, but I said fines in plural. And as for the parking, frankly speaking, until you provided me this information, I didn't even see it anywhere because I tried. So you did not pay the fine and nobody informed you about this? Well, when I got this information for the Telegram bot, I guess I paid them, but this information, I couldn't find it anywhere else. And frankly speaking, in 2024, I can't even remember about these fines in 2022. I see, Oleksandra, thank you. Mr. Alish, please continue.
Thank you, Natalia. I have another set of questions. During the rounds of written questions to you, the advisory group of experts sought to clarify the sources of your purchase of the house with the land plot. On June 27, 2008, in the village of Kremenishche, Obukhiev district, Kiev region. And in your written explanation, which was dated February 18 this year, you stated that the purchase was made with foreign currency loans and that the documents reflecting their receipt were not preserved. However, later, 8 days later, February 26, you provided AG a copy of the loan agreement dated June 27, 2008, and on February 28th, also evidence of disbursement of the relevant loan funds. You explained us this situation. First, you said documents are not preserved, and then you suddenly found them. How this could happen?
The thing is, I did find them. I started looking for it, and I found one copy of the loan agreement, and I also unexpectedly from myself have found also the copy of the evidence, and I found a few applications that we have submitted to the bank, me and my mother, who also used her apartment as a collateral in order to provide for the loan agreement. And out of these applications that I submitted, I provided them to confirm that we did have the agreements. Unfortunately, I didn't find the agreements themselves, but everything that I could manage, like the mortgage agreement, I provided it to the group.
Thank you. It's a pity that you couldn't find it immediately after we sent you the first set of questions. There's another question which also concerns the electronic declaration. Because according to your declaration, which is covering the year 2021, on August 26, 2021, you donated 2,260,000 Ukrainian hryvnias in cash. Could you explain the details of this donation?
Так,
Yes, I can explain this. This was the donation agreement, and this was a gift in cash to my mother, and she put it on her bank account. Do I have to explain why I did it?
я
As I already explained to dear members of the advisory group, when my husband and I bought a house and the land plot, frankly speaking, this was a unsuccessful financial transaction for our family. We purchased it using the loan money, and this was a very bad idea because, first of all, this happened right before the exchange rate of dollar has increased as compared to the national currency, and this was the and then the following year there was the global world crisis, and because of that the cost of property dropped significantly. When we took this loan, the property that belonged to our family, to me, my mother, it covered more than in one time the amount of the loan. I lived in the center of Kyiv. I have 2 children. I wanted them to breathe fresh air. So I decided that we have to live in the outskirts of Kyiv, in the suburbs. But we didn't think it was reasonable to sell the apartments right away. So we took a loan and we decided, just like anywhere else in the world, we will be gradually paying it, the mortgage. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, not everything was as stable as expected, and we had, in a very brief period of time, to decide this issue. And we decided that we couldn't pay this loan by monthly installments, and we had to sell 2 apartments. One of them belonged to my mother, and another one belonged and was to me and my parents. We were registered there. And using money from these sales, we managed to pay back the loan, because I did not think that it was possible for me not to pay loan or to be evasive, in paying my financial duties. Many people applied for the court and changed the conditions of the agreement. I didn't think this was possible for me. I thought that we had to, even though this was so difficult, but we had to fulfill our duties, and we paid the loan. But I did not borrow anything from my mother. This is family, and nothing like that happened. But a certain moral duty or debt I did feel. And when I had a financial possibility, I gave my mother this money. I knew that she wanted to use this money to buy apartment for her grandson, who's my son, and that's normal. And we did it this way. I think that many questions, you wouldn't be asking me many questions if I just got my son the apartment. It's legal money, actually.
The legality, just it's a little bit unusual financial operation, let's say so. In 2019, you participated in the competition for the selection of candidates for election as a judge of the European Court of Human Rights from Ukraine. You were not put on the list of 3 recommended candidates for that position based on the results of the competition. How do you evaluate the results of this competition, that you was not recommended? And how do you see it from today's perspective? So 5 years later, are you still serving as an ad hoc at the European Court of Human Rights?
Так, я до сих пір
Yes, as of 2015, I am in the list of the ad hoc judges from Ukraine in the European Court on Human Rights. Frankly speaking, for a few times the question was raised to replace me with somebody, but somehow they don't. not once I fulfilled the duties of the judge of the European Court, so they never called me for the replacement back when Ms. Yutkivska was in place, and now when Mr. Hnatovsky is the judge on behalf of Ukraine.
Yes, I took part in this competition, and I think that maybe my wish was a really very strong one at that period to win in that competition, but I wasn't sufficiently prepared for that competition. And unfortunately, I don't know the French language, and there was a requirement to have the second language in possession, at least at the initial level. So I think that it is good that it happened as it happened, and we have a wonderful judge from Ukrainian side.
Thank you very much for all your answers. I have no further questions, and I pass the floor back to the secretary of the advisory group of experts to continue moderating this interview. Thank you.
Дякую, пане голово.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Are there any other questions for the candidate from the experts and from deputy experts? Mr. Kuzmenko, thank you. I wish you success in today's interview and in the competition itself, but I would like to ask you, what made you to submit your candidacy for the position of judge of the Constitutional Court, and how do you see yourself as a judge of this institution? This is the question I wanted to ask you, so please answer it. Thank you for that question. I have been asked a lot that question, and even my colleagues say that you don't need to go anywhere because there are a lot of cases and not so many judges of cassation criminal court. You know, I like my position. As you know, for 3 years in a row, I was a judge of the Grand Chamber, and after a 3-year period, it was my conscious decision to leave the Grand Chamber and to be transferred to the Cassation Court, because I thought that it would make my participation more efficient, and I think that it was the right decision. Why I decided to submit my candidacy for the Constitutional Court? The first reason is a general one. I am always guided by a very famous saying, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? If only for myself, then why? I think that you know all this quote. I believe in it very deeply. And I think that if people who feel themselves conscious, integral, experienced, if such people don't go for such competition, we will obtain the composition of state bodies that we do not deserve. This is general reason. More concrete reason is that my work in Grand Chamber gave me a lot. And I learned how to work in a big team. This is really very collegial, very big teamwork, 21 very experienced and qualified judges. And to know in such a team not to get lost, not to miss and not to lose your vote and your position, very difficult. The work for the Constitutional Court, I think the similar one. In the Grand Chamber we raised very global issues. But I think that, you know, maybe it's not a plausible analogy, but for many years I have been a lawyer, and sometimes lawyer is the last resort, is the last force that fights for a for the people. I think that the Constitutional Court is the last resort in Ukraine for people to fight for their rights, for the state bodies to act as it is recognized by the Constitution and by the law. So I think that on the level of the Constitutional Court, I will manage to do more. Ms. Oleksandra, and to develop this question, so you're a lawyer, you're a scientist, and take an opportunity in the legislation amendments. You participated in the Supreme Court judge and you won this competition, and you became the judge of the Supreme Court and even of the Grand Chamber. 2 years later, you submitted your candidacy for the European Court of Human Rights. After a couple of years, you applied for the Constitutional Court of Ukraine. Don't you think that the state believed in you as in specialist in criminal law and in procedure, and the state thought that not for 1 year, but for a lot of years, you will help to direct this practice in the right direction? Why you are trying to find out other solutions than work for the Supreme Court? Thank you so much for your question. It's not an easy one. So I try to find, maybe it's not that I am trying to find another place, but when I participate in competitions, in the same time I perform my duties in quite a good manner. When I talk about the average load, I'm not left behind my colleagues. I would say that I'm in the first half. Yes, I agree. So you see that there are less and less people. So there were 200 judges of the Supreme Court. Now there is 150. And this issue, this tough issue, is really very relevant for Cassation Court. I understand it. But I think that among the judges of the Constitutional Court in Ukraine that work currently, so I think that participation of the criminal law specialist will be useful, because criminal procedure sometimes is affected, quite often is affected by the gaps in our legislation. But the question is not in the fact that I am trying to avoid my work and my duties. I am proud of my position, of my current and incumbent position. And I completely agree to you that the state choosing people and implementing, providing such a difficult selection procedure, this is a big honor, and we perform our functions, me and my colleagues. It's not only about the tasks, it's also about expectations. So don't you think that you are letting down the state? If the state thinks that there should be more judges in the Constitutional Court, I think that I'm suitable for it. Okay, another question. So there is a term for 9 years for the judge of the Constitutional Court. Can we be confident in the fact that if you're appointed, you will work for these 9 years, so you won't have a desire to pass to another type of court? Well, you see that the position in European Court is occupied for the nearest 8 years. So, yes, in the Constitutional Court, I think that I will have tasks and duties to perform in the Constitutional Court. So you are a specialist in criminal procedure and criminal law. But when we worked on your candidacy, we didn't see that you developed your experience in constitutional law. and judiciary. For example, we didn't find any participations in roundtables, conferences, and publications in this regard. Why do you think that, with experience that you possess, the Constitutional Court will be able to be enhanced by you as a specialist? I mean, specialist in criminal law and procedure. Why do you think that it is needed? Thank you. Yes, I'm not a specialist in constitutional law, and I have never positioned myself in this regard. The matter is that the Constitutional Court needs not only constitutional law specialists. We can't imagine it without constitutional law specialists, because we need to know about methodology, genesis, history related to this law sector. But what is more important, as for me, to understand the essence of the Constitution, to understand the contents of the Constitution. Yes, I haven't written articles about constitutional law, but being members of Grand Chamber, we implemented Constitution a lot, and I expressed my thoughts a lot based on the direct implementation of the Constitution. So I am really very lucky to have this symbiosis of experiences: academician, scientist, lawyer, and judge. Thank you. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the members and deputies of the advisory group of experts? No questions. Then we're ready to wrap up the interview, but you are given the floor for the 5-minute closing statement. Please, the floor is yours. I am really happy to be here. I express my gratitude to all the members of advisory group of experts, both international and national experts. I am thankful to all people who participate in such a difficult process. I was a member of Competition Commission in my past, so I know that this is quite a difficult work. So I wish you inspiration and strength for the right decision. I am really grateful for your work. What I would like also to add: with my participation into this competition, as each participant of each competition, I hope in my victory, and I would like to show with my example that honest competitions are possible, that integrity in judges is possible, that just decisions can be taken, that the Constitutional Court can be formed according to the highest European standards. I believe that involvement of the highly qualified participants with the high moral values provides the quality of such a composition, and in future it will provide for the effectiveness of the Constitutional Court functionability. Also, I know that 2 of my children are watching this interview, and I would like to say that I'm not ashamed to look into their eyes. This is really very paramount. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Oleksandra Grigorievna. And the interview with the candidate for a position of a judge of Constitutional Court, Oleksandra Grigorievna Yanovska, is closed.